one of them was smart enough to go, better yet, I can flash the flashlight. You're going to get a quicker flash. I hope she was happy with getting more of your fans since we're doing support tourism and libraries, but I 2.5 weeks after I asked for more details on after post and grant roles. So here's your schedule. Well, they were looking for people to set up and for the post and basketball and reader. So I set up everywhere else.
Just kind of email about the next neighborhoods or Neighbourhoods.
I asked for more information on the other people. I got it on the Friday before. So I got a 4-page my schedule. Well, you didn't even confirm you received my email. What do you expect from me? 2.5 weeks. I did it. Fortunate for them. But I was in, yeah, I was in. I saw all the 7 hours. You know, I saved $600 for the side budget. Good. It does, yeah. So I think it's Kingston. Renfrew. I saw someone there from Renfrew. And I think there's somebody there from Thunder.
Why don't you just say 5 minutes for you?
You know, 10 minutes before.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to let you know we'll probably get started in about 5 minutes.
In terms of numbers, we've got it's hard work. Well, we're at but they show up to the movie night, which is good.
You got the order. Oh, I changed my order for no good reason. Well, listen to what I'm saying. Yeah.
George just walked in. I told you. Yeah, maybe don't touch him.
Well, he returned his card to Montana. He wasn't able to say anything about the development. I don't know if that was any part of it.
Karen is. Karen. I do, yeah. Yes. And I don't use the same sort of context.
We should get work.
Well, good evening, everyone. I think we're going to get started. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Lynn Livingston. I'm the Managing Director of Neighborhood Children and Fire Services, and I'm really pleased to see so many of you here this evening. When I was driving to work today, I was thinking about, excited about coming tonight. Is anybody else getting that feedback? All right, so back a bit. I was excited about coming tonight, and it made me think about the venue I was coming to, which is this lovely place. And it made me think that the very first meeting we had around something called Strengthening Neighborhoods was in this room. It was in this room in December of 2008 on a snowy, cold winter evening, where we had the very first discussion around what strengthening neighborhoods meant for our community. And there are actually some people in this room that were here then. Bill Gow was one. I think George Sinclair was one. Yes, one. And I think Mayra Marnie was one. And so 10 years later, here we are, talking about what more we can do about strengthening our neighborhoods. So I'm really excited to be here tonight, and I hope that we have a really, should I try again? I hope we have a really great evening. So tonight is about a little bit of celebration, a little bit of education. We have some very fine speakers who have come from Montreal to share their expertise with you. And it's also about a little bit of work. So sorry about that part, but that's what we want you here for. And so here's the agenda for tonight. You're going to hear a little bit from me, and then we're going to hear from our guests. And then the work is to talk about prioritization, about what we should focus on for strengthening our neighborhoods in 2019. And we'll hear more about those specific things. I've been asked to highlight for you what's on your table. There are some handouts there that might be helpful to you in terms of the strengthening neighborhood strategy, a little bit of a backgrounder on what that might be if that's news to you. An annual report on the good work we did together last year in 2018, and then a little bit about the work we need to do tonight around 2019. I'm just going to keep trying the mic, and we'll see if it eventually works, because we're actually live streaming, and so I think they can't hear me if I'm off in the distance. So is that working better? Yeah. Okay, great. So these are the things that are on the table for you, and you might have a look at as we move through the evening. The other thing that I think I'm asking Karen to talk about. Good evening, everyone, and thank you. You'll notice we had a slide up when you came in that asked you if you have an electronic device to kind of get it prepped. So I'm going to take just a couple minutes to explain how a new piece of technology is going to work for a sort of like a voting system for tonight, and we're going to do a little practice. If you don't have an electronic device for this exercise, don't worry. This is just a practice, and we have paper. So we're very prepared. If you don't have an electronic device, we can lend you one if you want, or you can do it on paper. I just want to take a minute to introduce you to my team. I'd like to introduce everyone, and if you could just give a wave or stand. The first person is Cheryl Smith, and she has a broken arm, so I don't know if she can wave. But Cheryl is my manager, and under our team of neighborhood development and support, we have Ryan Craven on the technology tonight, Katie Stewart, who is ultimately responsible for the lovely setup of this evening, Vanessa Kinsley in the back,
Sabrina was not able to meet with us tonight because she has the flu, and you can probably hear that I'm struggling a little bit with my voice, so hopefully she's not getting this. Also at the back is Janice Walter, and she is helping with the London Strengthening Neighborhood Strategy as well. And I'd like to mention Haley Thompson, who's a Brescia student with us. And also you'll notice up here on the video camera is Dana Watcher, and she's our communication specialist. So I just wanted to introduce them. They're the team that brought you tonight, and so I wanted to make sure that you could see who we all were. We are also the folks that will help support the actions as we move into 2019 and have been working with the community, all of you, on the actions last year and the year before. So, how many people do not have an electronic device? Also, a lot of you do, so that's cool. And we do not hold that against you. In fact, you probably are living a healthier life than the rest of us. So, but for this, just for tonight and for right now, we're just going to do a quick exercise, a little icebreaker of why you might be here. So Ryan has up on the screen a quick question, and you can pick up to 3 answers. There are 3 ways in which you can answer this, and you'll be maybe more comfortable with one than the other. The first is you can go onto the website, which we had up earlier. There's also a handout on your table that has the website on it, so it's polleverywhere/lsns. If you've downloaded the app, because you saw the slide when you came in, you can press on the app now, and you could enter LSNS, and it'll bring you to this question. And lastly, you can text by texting to the number 37607. And the way to enter into the question is to type in the comment bar LSNS, and that'll bring you the ability to, it'll acknowledge that you're in, and it'll give you the ability to vote. So I'm going to give you a second to get acclimatized to that. This is something new for us. We've switched from putting up all the papers on the wall and using sticky dots. So we think that this anonymity might help us be a little more, I guess, maybe a little more honest, and we may get true voting happening. So has everyone voted? And if there's any trouble, we're happy to come over and help you. How are we doing?
Is anyone still waiting to vote?
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
On the app, you can select things, but then it won't let you actually put it in, go anywhere. There's no enter.
You just have to enter.
Yep.
And you're done.
Just hit done.
It just
You don't
won't
hit
stay on the
there's
screen.
no submit.
There's no enter, there's no save. Yep, no. For this question, it's just a warm-up for the people with electronics.
Not sure if I'm on or not. Okay, is that the answer?
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent. So, majority of you want to learn more about the London Strengthening Neighbourhood Strategy, which is great. And a lot of you would like to become more involved with making London an amazing city. We can't ask for anything more than that. And a lot of you are here to hear the keynote address. And I like that some of you are here for dessert. All right, so that was our practice round, and we'll be doing this again shortly.
And I'm quite relieved that some of you want to hear about the strengthening neighborhood strategy, because that's my job to tell you about it. All right. So, just to set the table a little bit for the kind of work that we're going to ask you to do later this evening, I'm just going to provide a little bit of background around the London Strengthening Neighbourhood Strategy, where it came from, and what we're focused on right now. So it's really important to understand that the Strengthening Neighbourhood Strategy is entirely about residents. This is a resident-driven strategy that are invited, where residents are invited and encouraged to participate in the engagement around what makes neighborhoods stronger in London. And a long time ago, we started talking about neighborhoods as, sometimes they get talked about as just places, and sometimes they get talked about in terms of people. We talk about them as both, where they are how people and places connect together to make neighborhoods great places for Londoners to live, work, and play. There are also some cities that look at strengthening neighborhood strategies where they look at just those that are perhaps the most disadvantaged neighborhoods. A long time ago, we collectively made the decision to say we actually want to talk about all neighborhoods, because by strengthening all neighborhoods, we lift our city entirely, and we help everyone to move forward. So that is why, for the City of London, our strengthening neighborhood strategy is citywide, and it impacts every neighborhood in trying to improve the quality of life for everyone. And I think that's a really important platform that we started so long ago in this room. So it says November 2008, and I said December. It's because in November we invited people to a meeting. And honestly, we thought 20 folks might show up, and we were incredibly impressed and overwhelmed that we had almost 130 people show up to be part of a task force around strengthening neighborhoods. And over that period of time where that task force worked, we had 90 residents participating actively who represented 27 neighborhoods. And the result of their work over many months was what we called the 5-year action plan on London's strengthening neighborhoods strategy. And this vision was developed by that group during that time, and I'd just like to read it because it still guides our collective work today. So the vision of London strengthening neighborhoods was, our London is a city of neighborhoods. Our London neighborhoods will be empowered, sustainable, safe, and active communities. We will care for and celebrate each other while encouraging diversity and inclusiveness. Our neighborhoods will be environmentally and socially responsible and will have available green space, vibrant local economies, and accessible amenities of daily life. And that has driven a lot of the work that we've tried to do together over the last 10 years. Upon completion of that first LSNS, what we called LSNS strategy, 5-year action plan, we then moved into what we finally called LSNS 2.0. And this, so what happened during those first 5 years is that the notion of neighborhoods and the notion of working together to strengthen neighborhoods really caught hold. It got a rooting in the work of the city. City staff worked together differently than we had ever before. And so that notion really took hold, and it actually took hold in the previous council's strategic plan. They particularly noted it in an area called strengthening our community, and the focus in that strategic plan, which has driven the development of LSNS 2.0, was around supporting neighborhood-driven activities and decision-making. So very specifically, how do we help support neighborhoods to do what they think is good for their neighborhood? That's entirely what was based out of the last strategic plan. And much of the work of the LSNS 2.0 strategy built on the first one, but also many of the other important city building initiatives that were underway. So what does LSNS 2.0 look like? There are 4 themes that frame this strategy. The first is around engagement in neighborhoods. And what that strategy really talks about is increasing and strengthening the general knowledge of neighborhood identities. So that how do neighborhoods feel about themselves and how do other people know about them? The second area or theme is around communication. And the strategies that were identified for communication were increasing and improving communication in neighborhoods. And that's in a couple of ways. That's in neighborhoods communicating with each other within the neighborhood, neighbors with neighbors, but it's also about neighborhoods being able to connect with their associations or neighborhoods being able to connect effectively with the city. The third area was around tools and resources. So these strategies were about increasing and improving very tangible supports for neighborhoods. And in a minute, I'm going to talk about some of the ones that have been developed as a result of this plan. And the final area was what we called overarching strategies. So there were 3 clear areas of focus, but there were some additional things that we felt or the residents that developed this plan felt were important. One was about broadening engagement with diverse communities. The other was around evaluation, and the final one was around reporting. So understanding that the work we're doing is actually making a difference and being transparent and reporting that out so people understand where resources are going and how the work that we're actually doing. Each year, out of this plan, we ask residents, like yourselves, to identify what the priorities should be for the year. So we did that last year, and I'm going to talk in a second about the things that happened because of that work. Tonight, we're going to ask you what the priorities should be for 2019. So what happened as a result of the priorities that were identified last year that came out of that plan? The Neighborhood Small Events Fund really took off. We had, as you can see up here, in 2018, the city supported through that fund over 37 events, and they ranged in a great variety from family skates to movie nights, barbecues, block parties, sporting events. We also established our neighborhood event equipment lending program. Really needs a shorter name. But this is actually proven to be quite a successful and really necessary program where the city, with no additional budget dollars, purchased chairs and tables and games so that neighborhoods could hold events on their own. And this has been proven to be very, very successful in terms of people accessing those kinds of supports to do what you'd like to do in your neighborhoods. Some of the other things that have happened in 2018 is the team that Karen introduced to you have supported over 42 neighborhood events throughout the year, as you can see, with 5,000 attendees. What's really important here, though, is that there are some neighborhoods that are very well organized, have a long-standing structure in place to be able to hold events. We were able to support neighborhoods that had never held events before, and hopefully that becomes something that they're able to do as, again, that notion of strengthening all neighborhoods, having them have an ability to connect with each other. One of the items that was identified for a 2018 action was the establishment of a welcome wagon. So we've worked with neighborhoods that already utilize a well-structured welcome wagon approach to develop a program that all neighborhoods could access, and we're hoping to launch that in the next month. Oh, it's launched apparently. Great.
Today.
See, we're
Today.
right on top of it. Another important area of focus that came out of the last prioritization exercise was around neighborhood identity signage. So city staff have adapted the commemorative sign program so that neighborhood identity signs are included in that program. We've also translated our Neighborhood London brochures into 4 languages so that French-speaking, Spanish, Chinese, and Arabic-speaking Londoners can utilize that support. We supported 12 neighborhoods that had never hosted an outdoor movie night before. And so a number of exciting initiatives have happened over the last year as a result of the prioritization that came out of our session last week, which I think was March 3rd, where you identified what you think we should focus on for the next year. So you can see the tools, if you look at the themes, the tools that have been in place, the communication efforts that have been in place, so that we can continue to move forward with the implementation of that plan. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Karen, who's going to introduce our speakers. Really quick, really short.
So I had a really long note that I was going to read. I practiced because there's French words in it and I'm not that adept at French. And then my favorite keynote speakers let me off the hook and said, we'd actually just like to introduce ourselves. I said, okay, great. But we had the pleasure of spending the afternoon with Carlo and Max, along with some other city staff to hear about the great work they're doing. And so we're really excited to be able to share them with you and the work that they've been doing with you. So I would just like to call them up to introduce themselves.
for the invitation. It's great to be in London. First time, had a great day today. Kind of visited the city, and it's great to see you guys having this exercise that we'll have. Yeah, sorry.
You can take it off.
Yeah. All right, that's good. So we started a project called La Pépinière 5 years ago in Montreal, and now we're a young group of about 100 people based in Montreal. So Carlo and I are representing the group. I co-founded the project 6 years ago. Carlo recently joined, and he's our official Anglophone in our team. So we're young professional. We come from different backgrounds. We have all different specialties. I have a master's in business. You have a agriculture engineer, urbanism architect. So we're a group of utopian who want to see the city differently. We do placemaking. What is placemaking? Placemaking was invented a couple of years ago, but it's been there for centuries. We always been doing places, but the placemaking idea came from New York. Jane Jacob, I don't know if you've read her book, and Fred Ken from PPS established the notion of placemaking, I think 40 years ago. 50 years in New York. Their idea was just like, let's make a project for public space. They were fighting against cars, so there was a group of environmental people who started this idea of let's think different about our cities and the way we live our cities. So the umbrella of placemaking has community engagement, public space management, and tactical urbanism. So at La Pépinière, we create self-managed place, and we help others to do their own. It's really essential to have that duality because we showcase our work, and more people ask us to help them. We work on two levels.
So for those of you that may know Montreal from an outsider's perspective, Montreal has one side of it, which is really this big events. There's the Jazz Fest, the Formula One, all these really internationally renowned events that happen. But Montreal, like London, is also a city of neighborhoods, and these neighborhoods have their own identity, and people feel strongly a strong attachment to those neighborhoods. Our work is really focused at that neighborhood level there, and we're going to see through the presentation that it actually ends up having this impact on the visibility of Montreal at the international scene, or even just beyond the borders or beyond the island. So our work is kind of unique, has core business, that way of seeing things. So we address urban design, event management, and social engagement. We created something new called collective space. So it's public space, but is collectively designed and activated. We invented a methodology with a little E on which is French. So the way we work, we actually have 4 components. A lot of people come to us and say, can you create us a nice looking space? We don't do design, we do the 4 pillars to make sure it's really coherent and has a balance. So we mobilize the community, we create collective visioning, we build and deploy, and we we do programming on the site. So mobilizing is a key element. Tonight you've been mobilized, you're all engaged in your community, and we're about to have a discussion about future interest of the program. Once we establish a collective group, we have different personal objectives. It's kind of hard to carve that one specific thing that we collectively agree, and we use different tools to actually get to carve that collective vision. Once we have agreed on a vision, we start deploying and building things. So we are builders, we're constructors, we are architects, and once the site is done, we program, we celebrate, so we activate the site. So winter, summer, all year long, different programming, it all depends on the people who is part of the process. So we've been doing 30 projects over the last 6 years, 4 years now, 5 years. It's been really fast. So we use unutilized spaces that are publicly owned, and we work with the community to change that setup. So we can take the example of the Olympic Stadium, concrete, hostile, and we turn this into like a urban farm. There's chicken, there's a little buvette, there's a little bar, there's shows, and it's active during the summer. On top, there's a camping site that we try to promote to have a different business model eventually on the space. We turn an alleyways into a public market. So the business improvement district hired us to actually envision something new inside downtown, so where the community could actually find some produce and have an alternative, smaller scale, collective cultural event space. Marché at water market, so we kind of always emphasize on the surrounding to create something that is more connected to the community. Public market are always gathering people from a couple of kilometers away, but the people that live right next to it no longer feel attached to it. Yes, they go there, but it should be a strong community hub. So what we created was actually just add tables, picnic, umbrellas, some light, and we had a public barbecue where people could actually go to the market, get some vegetables and meat, and start grilling. Meanwhile, they get to meet other people and start to connect with their neighbors. McGill College, McGill University has a land, it's a big park. The city hired us to actually create something, and we came up with this idea of a public library where people can just borrow books and spend some time with new neighbors. We kind of realized that it was the student ghetto. We thought that the community living close by were students, but we realized by popping up this project that there's more, there's family, and they finally have a new element in their community to gather, so it was an instant success. Montréal Nord has one of the poorest neighborhood in east of Montreal, west of Montreal, east of Montreal. And the city of Montreal asked us to create like a party to celebrate the inauguration of a big public art installation, $1 million installation. And we kind of negotiated with the city to, instead of throwing the party, let's do a public market. So we built some farm to host the market, and overnight it became a tradition. So now it's still running. It's managed by the city, by the local organization, and they're managing it 5 years later by itself. So we're capable of building the structure, showing the business model, coaching them, and now they actually manage the site. So we were able to kickstart the project, and now it runs by itself.
So why does this matter beyond having really nice Instagrammable spaces in your city? We've been asking ourselves, what's the impact of our work? And last year did our first, with some researchers from the University of Montreal, looked into what is the impact of what we're doing. There's also some other researchers around the world who have been asking similar questions about the role of public spaces and how social isolation impacts individuals and communities. So from a research study done in Australia, they saw that collective spaces increases trust. There's a direct relationship between more collective spaces and the trust amongst neighbors. Our own research, we're curious in understanding how collective spaces influence engagement of residents. So we found, excuse me, we found that in our collective spaces, the people who visited led to more engagement. We believe that this has a decreased impact on loneliness, and what we found was that people who visited our sites, was it two-thirds? Two-thirds of visitors who came to our site met someone that they didn't know already and maintained that relationship beyond the time they're at the site. So that's how far our research has taken us so far. we believe, and we're going to look into this further, that this has a positive impact on well-being, both at the individual level and then furthermore at, like, beyond that, at the community level. You may have heard of also loneliness is the new cancer. There was a lot of think pieces and research has been talking about how social isolation has really measurable negative impacts on people's physical health. So if you go back to the previous slide, we can swap out that well-being for decreased loneliness actually has probably impacts on decreasing public spending on healthcare. Then again. Which then we're like, our thought is, well then why not reinvest that as a preventative measure into collective spaces? And there is some hints that the government of Quebec is looking into doing this, and we're really eager to see them investing in kind of this, what might seem like a far out way, into reducing spending on healthcare by investing in public spaces. This is all nice. How do we scale this? How do we bring this to more people and to more communities?
So one of our initial projects was Les Jardins Gamelin, which is downtown Montreal. So we start working with this space, which is downtown Montreal, near a metro station. So we're very centric. There's a university. There's a lasers somewhere. That's the university. That's the metro. And as you can see, it's a very mineral space. Super hot during winter, so no one was actually using the space. But also, you need to understand that this place was utilized by homeless people and people with the drug street gangs and drug dealers. So it was an unutilized space. It was unpleasant, and no one was actually using that space the proper manner. You would actually, as a Montrealer, walk all around it, and the funny thing is, right there is the drop-off of the bus that goes directly to the airport. So all the tourists would arrive to Montreal, and the first thing would see was an interaction with someone selling crack cocaine for profits. It wasn't really the best way to showcase Montreal, and the Quartier des Spectacles, it's like the business improvement district of dedicated downtown to culture and art, hired us to actually figure a solution to this. It was probably one of the best place 25 years ago in terms of aesthetic. It has public art, it has like water fountain, has a big garden, like green space, but it was not utilized for so many years that the social interaction were going down and down. So for the 375th anniversary, we were commissioned to think of a solution to re-engineer and rethink this space. So what we started was, it could be actually a good way to actually showcase that urban agriculture is a great way to interact with people. So we started with that component, started to actually clean those lots here and create some garden. Another element that we worked is, we wanted to create a place that would feel welcoming for people to gather around this place and not be lost because the place is so big. So we gathered like a little knitted space for people to interact. And we wanted to also add a component that would connect the two spaces with a stage, so that people could actually go on stage, perform, either talk to these people inside or in the land. So that were components that we started drawing, and through the commission of the city, we were able to do a project that was quite pleasant. So we had commissioned artwork here from Janet Eckelman, which is a fishing net illuminated. We did a bar here with a terrace. We did the neon sign, the garden, and little shed for gardeners to produce. And we create not simply design, but we also engineer an ecosystem. So people going at the bar would generate, would buy alcohol at the bar. The bar would pay for the artist to be produced, And from the community, it would be an invitation for homeless people to participate to the garden. In exchange of their labor, they were given tokens that they could actually buy food or get a coffee. So we create this little community, and overnight people came. It was an instant success. We were afraid that people thought it was not accessible, but everyone was welcome. Homelessness stayed. The drug dealer left because it was no longer their place. It was a place of the community. But the coexistence of these community was went super well, and it was very festive, but also social. So the idea of this project, as you can see, it's a very costly initiative. It's 100% subsidized by the city. It's 5 months of activation, but it's 70 days of free programming. So the question is this model really sustainable? How can we constantly, as the city or government, subsidize such a project? And we at Pépinière kind of figure out a way to actually have a different model where the community is actually behind the project and pushing, and they're the labor that makes the project more resilient on the long run. So we have another project that we've done that we're still running, called Village au Pied du Courant. So is the community capable of delivering work like Gamelin at that scale and become like an icon for Montreal? So we're in Montreal, very centric again, next to the river. It's a big lot, 7,000 meter. It's vacant during summer, and winter it's a snow dump. So we did a deal with the government and the city to actually use the space during summer. As you can see, this is the neighborhood, and this is a highway, or kind of a boulevard that is cutting access from the river here to the community. No one is capable of crossing the street because the cars are going too fast. So by activating this space, we were actually able to get more people to enjoy the park.
How did they get there?
We changed the duration of the light by asking the city to, it was actually 10 minutes, and now the crossing, 10 seconds, sorry. 10 seconds to 2 minutes light, so it's the different, so when someone asks for crossing, now it's more secure. So this is how we took the lot. It's more like a storage, but as you can see, it has a great view on the bridge, super centric, so it's very nice. It's right next to a metro station, so it's walking distance. So year after year, what we've been doing is we asked for the community to submit some ideas to co-build the project. So that was year one. Every unit was built by a member of the community. So we co-designed the project and we do the work collectively. And from this, year after year, we grew into this. So this is how it looks like. It's super welcoming, it's festive, it's colorful, and it's open all summer long. It's always free, and it's an event that is gathering in traction. So a grassroots initiative came in 6 years, a landmark for Montreal. Every time you go to Montreal, people will say, go to Village. So it's not government-led, it's citizen-led, and I think we have the power to scale the model of citizenship. There's always barrier to scale, but it takes time. So in comparison, you can see the numbers pile up, and we're really close to what the Jardin Gamelin were doing, we're achieving. So a lot of visitors, builders, 4 months of activation, a lot of people, the artists perform. It became like a business place where people actually were employed, a lot of volunteers, but almost $1 million in revenues, and the contribution of the city was less than 20%. So we can develop a new model, and seeing this, the city is eager to see more projects like this. So having those models, we kind of realized that we need to teach people and share our knowledge to actually help others to do this. And we started a program called PEP Academy, now called Vivace in French, but
to go back to one point when I was saying how the vision of Montreal as this international city, the project Max just talked about is one of those. It's used on the tourism board's publications, and they use it as images from it to showcase what Montreal has to offer. So even though it's a community-led initiative, it had such success and it's such a landmark that now it's been looped up into this category of look what the city has to offer. So the PEP Academy is back into this model of sharing the practice at the neighborhood level, kind of similar to what I'm hearing about tonight here, actually. So we realize that there's lots of creativity and initiatives amongst residents in Montreal, and they don't necessarily always have the capacity or the know-how to get those projects going and lift it off. We've learned a ton of stuff by running the Village au Petit Courant and then other projects, and how can we support those community organizations or members by sharing what we've learned. So Vivas does this there's a call for proposals to different projects. There's a short list that is done internally and then by our colleagues, which is then turned over to a jury, a committee that is external to La Pépinière, who select the finalists. These 4 finalists for this year are going to be coached and trained on a common platform. So for example, one of the barriers to running projects is navigating the bureaucracy of any city. Or, that's not a pejorative thing, there's a reason for bureaucracy. Coaching on budgeting and planning your year out. So the teams are all coached together. And then there's individualized coaching because the projects aren't always doing the same thing. So then we help them with specifics. So if someone's doing an urban agriculture project, we'll take them aside and work with them on how to build that project. The projects are then deployed, and in the first year, we're already talking about financing and resilience for the future year, because the projects are selected in part in terms of their maturity. So if it's too young and not quite ready to be taken off the ground, we'll not select them. On the other hand, if they're really mature, maybe they don't need our help. What we're looking for are projects that are in that sweet spot and that have a way of becoming resilient. And that resilience often has to do with financing. So the program consists of training, 8 months of coaching, training workshops, personalized meetings, and on-site deployment. There's a budget. There's a co-managed budget ranging from $5,000 to $20,000. We have $5,000 of discretionary spending for each team. That's guaranteed. We're hoping that the boroughs in which the projects are situated will come to the projects and see their value and add some money to that. Beyond that, just the coaching and the training has a value of $75,000. So this whole project is worth $300,000 that we're putting in to support initiatives in the city. And then there's people power. We are going to hire interns to help deploy the ideas, and we provide coaching from our team members. So this year we had 50 projects submitted from all across the city, far more than we had hoped. There's 4 initiatives that will be selected. As I said, $75,000 each. And the coaching is for 8 months, but we've been working 2 months ahead of time doing the call for proposals and the pre-selection. So some last thoughts to leave you is that a lot of what we do is based on this idea, this theory of change, that as residents start participating in the communities, it generates more participation. It breaks down this idea that I don't have a right to engage in, to have an influence in my city, that I am just here as the city either offers me something or I go and consume something, but I don't have any agency to have an impact on my immediate surroundings. So we really believe that participation generates more participation. There's a bunch of different barriers to this. Vivas, the PEP Academy is one way that we try and address those. And there's a few takeaway lessons that we've learned over the past 5 years. One of them is prototype. The Village au Petit Courant in year 1 looks very different than what it does this year. But we started small with a bigger vision and changed it over and over again, always keeping what was good and what was working, and then adjusting the things that didn't. Diversity is key. When Jerome and Max, Jerome is the other co-founder of the organization, and Max started the Village au Petit Courant, they had a background in architecture and in finance. they realized that they needed other experts around them, and maybe not even experts, just other people to help them. So I did engineering school. If I hang out with engineers only, we get really rigid ways of thinking, and we're not super creative. Why not bring in a creative person and really strengthen our project by having this diversity of mindsets? And that also applies to backgrounds and cultural perspectives. Mobilizing is super important. You can't do it alone. Bring in as many people as you can, and the project will definitely go much further. Now it's up to you. That's our presentation. We hope it was food for thought and inspiring, and then you'll take something good away from it. Max and I are going to stick around for the break. If you want to ask us questions, I don't think we're doing questions now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I have my frog voice back. So, now that you've all been inspired, it's time for the work. First of all, I want to thank you all for participating tonight and in previous years, because as Lynn mentioned, there are several people who have been here from the beginning, and there are many of you who were here last year and who have been, influential in the work that's happened over the last year. So I wanted to take the time to thank you for that. Lynn touched on highlights from last year, but now the job in front of us is to decide what are the actions we're going to concentrate on for 2019. So this is another poll everywhere. Don't be discouraged by the screen in front of you. In your packages, it's time to take out, if you haven't already, the Good Neighborhoods talk, Let's Prioritize Actions for 2019. What I will suggest you do is to have a read through these action steps and prioritize your top 5. They don't have to be in order, just pick the 5 that you feel that we should be concentrating on in 2019. Once we've done that, if you have your electronic device, you can enter it either by the URL or the app. If you are choosing to text, this is very nasty to read, but all of the letters up there are the same as on your handout. So you'll be able to text A, E, F, whatever those are. I will tell you that if you're texting, you want to do A, comma, or A space, B space, C, that type of thing. So take a minute to read through those. If you've got a question or you need some assistance, we're happy. Look at our team is at the back ready to run over and help.
And the people who are doing it by paper?
And the people who are doing it by paper are picking their 5 on the paper, and Janice and I will collect those and we will add them to the tally. If you are at home in the comfort of your pajamas, live streaming this, you can also participate now by texting, going to the app or the URL, and you may select your 5 as well. So I'll give you a minute to do that. If you do have a paper copy and you want to put your hand up, Janice will pick it up from you. So if you've got your paper copy done and you want to wave it, we'll come and get it.
manifest into neighborhoods and the identity of neighborhoods. It is so, but as far as that's going to New York, you see our project use as I think they want to showcase the creativity of the children. Say the place. It's a good picture. Yeah, it is.
Does anyone need more time? Yeah, okay. So we'll give you a couple more minutes, and then we will be having a break, which is nice. I'll point out for those of you who are listening and finished, that we have some tables at the back of the room that we'd love you to visit. Our neighborhood programs and a lot of the promotional stuff we would take to events, and some of even our summer staff are here at the back. And we also have a great display by the Urban League and some of the work they're doing. And then we have a table for neighborhood associations to share what's happening with them. And if you have brought anything and you haven't placed it at that back table, please feel free. So we're going to do probably a 10 or 15 minute mingle. Max and Carlo will be here if you want to ask them some questions. And when you come back, we'll be able to reveal the sort of top 10 actions for 2019, and we'll move into the next part of our program. How are we doing? We all finished? Yeah. I see Janice with lots of paper copies.
So we can take a break when we're done?
Okay, and if you want to have a look at what's happening so far, Ryan's got the electronic ones up there, so you can see what's in the leads.
How do you even read that?
Oh yeah, you have to go by the letters.
Yeah.
There are drawbacks to
People aren't done
technology.
yet. Ryan, people aren't done. You're influencing.
Yeah.